So we're not going to be able to spend a lot of time on this, but I think that what's really important, especially for practitioners and students, is to have a working knowledge of what it means to have a theory of change, and then what it means to have a theory of practice about what you're doing. We came up with 12 theories of change. We could come up with many, many more, but within the scope of our project, we were trying to come up with those very core, most guiding theories about how we think change occurs. Because if you're not clear on how you think it occurs, then how can you design a program to achieve that? And so the theory of practice is your strategy. It's what you're doing in your intervention and your program to affect the change. But that core belief of that theory is so important, and I think for us, we're very excited to be at that intersection of theory and practice, because there's so much as a practice-oriented organization to learn from what's going on in the theoretical world, and then also to be able to give back as we're able to test some of these things. But if you don't know what's guiding your work, then you can't evaluate it and really know what's kind of the cause and effect of everything that you're doing. So we can go on to the next. So again, we have 12, and continue on. And if you're interested in knowing all of those 12, again, they're in our best practices report, which is online. But I chose to talk about one of them today because it's really the core theory of change in many ways for our work, which is, and because I know you can't read it, and it's also a very dense description. So I'll paraphrase, which is basically our theory of change, that the only way to shift and build these relationships, to shift intergroup relations, and to sustain that over time, is if what's learned is able to be generalized to outgroup members. So if we believe that that can happen, that if one person is changed, that then there can be this ripple effect. Our view is that in order for that to happen, that fundamental, really meaningful relationships between outgroup members is the beginning point. That it cannot be, in other words, it can't be superficial. And our program at every point is designed to go very deep on contentious issues. And it's a very intentional choice in our model that we name the elephant in the room. And you would have seen some of this in the film. But with our participants, we're really pushing them to be honest and to talk about the most difficult issues, because our feeling is that if you're not doing that, you might have a very superficial engagement, but you're not going to be able to build the deep relationships that are required in a conflict context to actually endure. Does that make sense? And so for us, throughout our intervention, we're looking at every workshop is motivated by moving our participants forward in terms of really building these deep relationships with the other. Because what we know is that when they go home then, those relationships have a much greater chance of actually not just sustaining, but for them to be able to not make just an exception. Well, that one Israeli person that I met in the program is okay, but everybody else is still my enemy. That they're actually begin to be able to shift in the way that they think about the entire outgroup. Does that make sense? But for us, everything comes back to a meaningful relationship. And again, that's an intentional choice. There are many other approaches in the intergroup realm that would have much more superficial connection and choose not to go onto what some see as these contentious issues on purpose, because they would feel that it might have the opposite for them, that their model would say that that would actually invite more conflict. For us, we feel that until you address those core issues, that the relationships will not be authentic. Does that make sense? So everything that we do is to push the students to go on their own terms and at their own pace very deeply in their relationships with one another.